Okay, we're going to wait for a couple more people to come in and then we'll jump into it. All right, I'll just get started. We can rehash if we need to. So this is a store, and this can be accessed once it's live from unitedaquagroup.com. If you go to the store, in the future it'll take you here versus to new order. This will just be replaced in that spot. And from here there's a lot of different places you can go. The first two obvious things would be upload an order sheet. If you're working in Excel, if that's how you like to work, you can actually do an upload and it will make that work for you. Another way to go is create a shopping list. That's what I was speaking to earlier, where you can take your key products that you buy, make a shopping list, label it however you want to label it. It could be your BioGuard list or your Pentair list or whatever you want it to be, Pentair parts list. And then all you gotta do is fill in quantity, hit submit, and that order is placed. So it eases the time you would spend actually finding things and making stuff happen. If you could click on brands for me. Hit view all. This is another way to go in. You can search in the search bar on the very top, or you can go in and we have every brand, and there's 300 vendors or 270 now or something like that, that you could go in, click on that brand, it would bring you into just that brand's products. So if you're shopping for a specific brand, this is another way in. Or we can go back to the top and we can go on the search by keyword, brand, or SKU. If somebody wants to throw out a part number to Zach, he'll punch it in and we'll see how well the machine works.
Go, Mom. Part number. SPX 2607 C. Is that the right picture? That's the right picture. What is that? That one.
Is that what you're looking for? This guy here? Okay, so notice first off there is a picture. What a beautiful thing. And then there's multiple pictures. You can do an exploded view. It takes you to a whole different shopping experience. Quite honestly, something you're used to in your everyday life. You should be able to be used to it with UAG life also. Anyone else want to throw a number out to try to stump the store? Something broader. Throw out a category. Want to narrow it down. Throw out something that you want us to work through. Filter. Well, there's 8,392 of them. So obviously you have a specific filter in mind. So where we can go from here would be probably over to the vendor side. So, okay, which brand of filter are you looking for? Pentair. Now we're down to 626. And you notice we don't have pictures for everything, but I would say it is greatly, greatly improved over what it used to be. So now we're in the Pentair filters, but you probably don't want to look at 626 of them. So let's go a little bit tighter.
Can I give you one that I found that had a better mirror? Yep. If you look up TR100C. I already told Conley about that. I don't know. This one may not have it. It does not have that.
So the first one here is the TR100C. You notice it comes up as a part number and a description number. A fiberglass sand filter, which this is greatly improved over how we used to describe what you were looking for. And the image is there. It's ready to roll. So are we doing okay? Is this looking better? Oh, you guys are a tough crowd. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, Zach, this is where we go in and we'd be able to look at invoices. Obviously, as a salesperson, I don't have invoices, but this is what you click on when you're purchasing. It's going to bring up any active or past invoices. Shows you a good search tool on how to get to them and build it out. And then, there's just a number of ways to get where you're trying to go in this. So what we've built is some tutorials. There will be YouTube videos on this. We've already done the written book on how to learn your way through the store. That's been done. Scott Ferguson has been doing a wonderful job in just taking it from an IT perspective and making it to where us normal people can understand it. And so once this thing launches, you're going to have everything at your fingertips. And I will say that if there's questions from your end, we're all pretty adept at it, and we're just a phone call away, and we can walk you through whatever's happening. So that's what we had to show you. Good? All right. Yep.
I kind of missed the first half. Do we all get new usernames and passwords, or do we use the same?
How will that work, Zach? Will there be a new login, a new?
Most likely you'll get a welcome email, and then you'll key your email address, and then you'll just create a password at that time.
Okay. And then new order goes away.
It'll
Basically, we'll transition over. Yeah.
it'll be a transition period. There'll be both for a bit. Yeah.
Zach, will we go on to the, will we actually go on the UAG main site now, that new site, instead of,
stuff, but at the same time, I'm always curious how everybody does some of these things. And so go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, we're just going to talk about form work, rebar, things that I think a lot of us take for granted how they're done. You know, I've seen some other stuff, and you watch these pool shows, and I'm like, really, how's that shit stay up there? So, I mean, we use a lot of lumber. We've been, of course, most of our sites are not nice flat backyards. They got some decent slope to them. So this is a job that trying to think where is this Marvin? That's west. Okay, that's going to be inside of a house. So what you're looking at is foundation walls that they built up, and then essentially we're, you know, bottom of the pool is roughly at basement height, and then the top of the pool will be at first floor height. A lot of forming, you know, a lot of gravel. We use tail belts to get gravel in. I assume everybody's used tail belts before. Know what those are? Where you actually have the, you know, almost like a boom truck, but has a, you know, a conveyor that can go out and drop both concrete, gravel, sand, whatever you want. But I mean, got a hopper on the back so you can load it. We had one job where we got, instead of dumping the gravel on the ground, we got a dump truck with what they call a coal chute, you know, basically just the opening in the back, and that actually dumped the gravel directly into the hopper, and then took it over and dumped it in, you know, 100 feet away, you know, that kind of thing. Gravel slingers. Anybody use gravel slingers? Yeah, sling gravel, huh? Amigos? We don't have as many of those. That's some, but no. All right, next. This is another one. This is actually the one, we're going to see this one today, right? So you'll see this one today. You know, we started this a few weeks ago. Another one out of the ground. They built a big 8-foot, or talk about it.
Well, I mean, we run all our plumbing in the floor, which I don't know if everyone does that or not. Get the gravel rate up first before we start forming, and we form up at least a 6 or 8 inch wall, then we'll flare it out at the beam, whatever width our coping is.
But this one had a big wall that was built before we started. I mean, the grade drop was like 10 or 12 feet. So they basically built the wall first, and then we backfilled that wall up to the bottom of the pool, build the pool, and then they'll backfill between wall and pool once it's all done. We do a lot of that even with like all these interlocking block walls we do down at the lake, where they'll get the wall up to 5 feet below finished grade, build the pool out of the ground, and go up from there. Probably most of y'all do the same kind of thing. All right, next. Same pool, just see it, box out at the top. Again, we just bring all of our plumbing up in one spot, and then we'll take that in a ditch. We run all of our plumbing from the pool to the equipment pad, all 2 foot below finished grade. We don't drain our pools down at all during the winter, even to winterize. That's every pool, even up in West Virginia where it gets colder. Now you start getting super northeast, you're probably borderline for this technique. I don't know how you winterize your stuff. If you blow them all out, we don't blow any lines out. We just try to keep it, with it being under the pool, we know that and as long as the pool's full of water. The biggest problem we've had is somebody, if they drain the pool, or God forbid if they have a leak, now you've taken that insulation cushion away, and it can give us an issue. But we put gizmos and skimmers, and as long as the filter equipment is above grade, then you open up all the valves, the gravity feeds back down the pool, and there you go. Technically you've got water in the vertical pipe coming up from the ditch up there, but as long as your valves are open, that, at least in our mind, the ice is moving in that vertical column and has a place to move. If the valve is shut, then you will have a break at that frost line somewhere.
I probably make 50 plumbing repairs a year on pools, and it's rare that we have plumbing. Rare. Extremely. Plumbing is one thing we don't have to. If it's someone else's pool, it's likely it's plumbing, but it's ours, it's usually not plumbing.
Our theory is also, as a lot of you all know, we don't do any work outside the pool walls. We don't do decking, we don't do retaining walls, we don't do fencing, landscaping. Most of the plumbing repairs we've had have been outside the pool, where somebody's dug into it, drove a fence post through it. And I guess in our theory, if a pipe is broken under the pool, we can fix it. I don't want to fix the deck. So even if we have to replaster it, we can do that, and I don't have to get anybody else involved. So that's kind of our scenario. Next, auto covers. How many people in here do auto covers? How many people in here hate auto covers? The auto cover box is another challenge in and of itself. Stealing it's not easy. It's not hard, but it's just more complex to do. This one here is, again, you'll see a lot of these pictures, and even today, a lot of our top steel is not on until we pour the floor. So we're getting all the vertical steel runs in, but we don't put 7-irons on usually until we pour. So we're jacking the steel, letting the concrete stabilize the cage for the most part, and then we're setting all of our stuff up high, usually after that. Again, I know a little different than most. We're starting to use a lot of these metal chairs. This one's got chairs on it, doesn't it, Austin? Anybody know what I'm talking about? The metal. Yeah, versus bricks. We used to always use center bricks, but we actually bought these tie guns, twin tire tie guns. We kind of balked at them. I guess they're like $1,500. Keep everybody. You see them at all the shows, and had somebody come around. We're like, all right, we'll try one. I guess from what I understand, they're fast. They're just not ultra tight, and you've got to have bars touching to use it. It's not going to pull 2 bars that aren't already touching together. Like if you were twist tying it. But that's always been the beef. Like on radius pools where you're bending steel, straight pools is usually pretty easy, but curved pools, you've got to give a little effort to make your steel work together. But Austin really likes it. I've got a couple of guys that balk at it.
The battery lasts for a week. Their battery power, so you think it was going to die the first hour you used it. It's like all the way apart.
But there are rolls of tie wire that get loaded. Tie wire is expensive. Guns are expensive, but I don't know if I can definitively say it's a true cost savings, but it's definitely a time savings. So I guess depending on how it works out. All right, next. This is a vanished edge pool, or going to be. All formed up out of the ground. This one's going to have a big catch basin. You'll see the next picture on this one. This is another one Austin built here in town. Pretty neat at a camp that we did. Anything else you want to say about this slide?
Go to the next one. That's the catch basin. We try to keep our catch basins 4 feet out of the ground so we don't have to fence them in.
If they're deeper than 18 inches of water. What do you do? What do you have to do on your catch basins?
Most of mine are elevated out of the ground. We don't have terrain change, so we fake it.
Okay.
It's still 8, 10 feet out of the ground. I'll see these blocks, so it's already there.
Okay. I mean, I guess, from a vanishing edge standpoint, you'll see on some of these, what we've been able to get away with, as long as the catch basin is less than 18 inches of water, I can pitch a case that it's not a pool and therefore doesn't require a barrier. If we're deeper than the 18 inches of water, then it becomes a pool and therefore needs a barrier, which in most of those cases we've done like this, where we've jacked that catch basin up so that the wall itself becomes the barrier, on that side of the pool.
They won't let us do that in Florida because it's attached to the pool.
It's attached to the pool?
Yeah, so
Well, of course, you had that crazy thing at the Marsh house.
Yeah, we've used the grading.
Grading?
Yeah, just you shoot a hip in essentially, and you just set that grading, or you just use 6-inch PVC and set it in there and set it on top of it, and it just suffices.
I actually copied that on a commercial pool we did, just so that somebody wouldn't fall into it.
I mean, most of ours they back up to a river or the ocean, and so you can easily make the case that the toddler's not going to forge the ocean to die in the pool.
But you did that one mainly so that, because you had to be able to walk all the way around it, right?
Yeah, we had to have that, so that the catch basin is actually just fake, it's just a pass through, so it doesn't hold any water. There's the whole walk path is a surge tank.
All right, next.
Same job, that's the vanishing edge that we formed up, double max steel. We've been forming them up lately and shooting them in, so we don't have to cut them down, do all the work ahead of time, get dead level.
Oh, although you got to be real careful with boxing in like that you don't feel full rebound. I mean, that's a, yeah, it's coming back up at the angle. So you got it boxed in just so you don't cut the top of that wall, down. And it keeps it a little bit more level. I mean, your tile's going to make it level, but some of these, you start cutting that thing down in the middle of nowhere, get a little bit funky. We use chairs between those two. So those we're basically using 4-inch chairs. Most of our vanishing edge walls we've done, and I'll be super honest, most of our stuff is not engineered. We're not required to get engineering. And I guess that's why I almost wanted Charles yesterday to talk more about from an engineering perspective, how to do it. I'm not saying I probably should pay an engineer, but there's no engineers that are local that are going to tell me how to build a pool, and I feel like they're only going to over-engineer the heck out of it versus, make it reasonable. But I'm always curious on how people do. That's why I guess showing these pictures and talking about it, because how people do steel, and I know a lot of you all get it engineered, which is the right way to do it, but what do we really want to do, and how to get what we want. So most of our vanishing edge walls have been 11-inch walls with double matte steel, the same 12-inch on center. We usually go to 6-inch vertical centers when we get over 5 feet deep on most stuff. But I probably should use some more steel, like Charles said. All right, next. So that's the finished pool of those at that camp. Kind of a neat. We ended up doing the slide and did the big catch pool, down below. And a little different of a camp. It's a camp of a guy that we know, and he owns the camp, so he made it. He wants his personal pool / a rentable pool. So it's got commercial kind of features, but yet it looks like a residential pool. As far as depth markers and ADA lift and some of that kind of stuff, rails, what we don't always see on residential stuff. All right, next. All right, so this pool here is.
It's not up there.
It's not up. It's not this one, huh?
That's wrong.
That's wrong. So that one was way out of the ground, as you can see. That one was a real challenge. We ended up doing a big turn down footer on the back side when we did our floor. Wasn't easy to hold. I mean, Austin had to do a lot of forming on that one. Pretty cool view. Free form definitely is harder to form than, or you agree with that? That and the radius points, see the radius points up. I mean, we use a lot of, I guess I've had this debate, and Lauren, God love you as a landscape architect, but I want even numbers, and I want to build the pool per numbers that are even, so that we put up radius points to dig it with. We put up a radius point, we put the radius points back up to form it, and we put the radius points back up again to do our pencil rod that we talked about earlier. So we do it 3 times, which is when everything's elevated, it's a big pain in the ass, but I mean, that's the way we think it should be done. Next. So that's that same pool. The interlock and block wall, we tried to talk them out of, but the guy actually owned a landscape company, so and that's what they did. Stone on the back side of the pool. That catch basin's 4 feet out of the ground. It's got a pretty cool view. If you're flying out, that picture's in the baggage claim that we use. Pretty awesome going back to the lake, but that at least shows the kind of height that it is out of the ground. All right, next. It's just another steel picture. Pretty basic. This one on chairs or brick?
Yeah, that's my pool. It's on chairs.
Oh, it's yours? Okay.
12-inch center, 4-bar, pretty typical, 6-inch center in the deep end.
I mean, I know, Josh, you're forming up, because of your soil, you're forming up every pool. I mean, everybody, I guess if you got dirt, you're trying to leave as much, leave that there as possible. I mean, again, we try to use that whenever we can, but there's other jobs that are out of the ground. You don't have that luxury, but most of the time we can dig and get it relatively close.
Is that a raised spot on the back there?
Yes.
Go to the next slide.
You can see how you dug it out in between the spa and the pool, put those bars in there to support that.
Yeah, you did with Z-bars there, or kind of lazy Z-bars, basically. Next.
Same pool, just showing the double mat steel in the spa. It's on, everything's on chairs.
And those are, I guess, the lines that are painted. Those are for all the guide wires for us to pour the floor. And then basically, we put stakes in that when we get done floating, and as you're brooming it, drive those rods down, and patch back over them. All right, next.
So that's after we pour, just showing we finished the beam steel. At least 3 rows of number 4-bar beam, bond beam. Get ready to shoot.
Next. That's finished. Like I say, we'll go by there this afternoon. Austin loves slides and diving boards, so he's got both. Big shelf, massive pool, massive pool. Gets used a lot. He's a party man. All these little kids. All right, next. All right, so this is just an example. I know not everybody here does commercial stuff, but this is one of our, probably our most expensive job we've done to date. $1.2 million natatorium project for a rec pool. It wasn't necessarily a competition pool, a rec pool for James Madison University. This one was all built up out of the ground as well. There, of course, is going to eventually be an indoor pool. All Schedule 80 stuff, big drains, big pipe.
3/4-inch double mat steel on the floor.
Speaking of, all right. So I'm assuming you're getting plumbing inspections and you're using water, correct?
On the commercial stuff, yeah.
On residential?
I don't need an inspection on like our PVC plumbing.
Okay, I mean,
It's like gas.
I've got one place that does, very few don't. This happened to be a Councilman Hunsucker job, which they require water testing. Now the problem is, we built this in October. We didn't finish it until the following October. So it's gonna run through a winter cycle. So what the hell do you do with all that water and the plumbing, especially when the pool's gonna be empty? Again, as I said before, under the pool, we think it's fine, but it's gotta be full of water in order to protect it. We end up pumping, this one, good and bad experience, more bad than good. But we bought 55-gallon drums of antifreeze, and we tried to mix the antifreeze and the water together. Now, we blew out as much as we could, but you're not blowing out all of a 12-inch line, you know, that's there. So I guess, I mean, when they talk about water testing, I understand why, because it's safer. I mean, anybody in here test with water? I mean, you know, and how, I mean, are you using just the garden hose to create the pressure, or are you fill it full and then hitting it with a little air to pressurize it? Just the garden hose? What about you? Okay, so and then you're just getting, what are you testing to? Are you? Okay, I mean, that's what they're making you go to? I'd say most of our air tests, we go to 10, and we let it sit there. I mean, so not super high, but I mean, air, of course, is dangerous if it was to explode. Shrapnel versus water doesn't. I mean, for why you don't, but you know, again, we don't use water. I'm not against water. We just have so many jobs. Like right now, we're building all these jobs, but we're not going to finish them until spring. So now they've got to go through a whole winter cycle. I'm afraid to have water in them, but what if I don't get all the water out? You know, that kind of thing. So, you know, and again, how we're running under the pool, it's not like I can create drain tees that is at the lowest point to be able to cut and that kind of thing. All right, this has got a perimeter gutter. Next slide. So this is that same pool. Again, if anybody's ever worked with Councilman Hunsucker, you'll know that they love to overdo stuff a ton. This had a lot of number 5s in it, some 6s. Sixes in the floor, double mat, number 6s in the floor, 10-inch floor, and even thickened slab on the outside. Concrete gutter that we did, ton of foreman. We shot on this pool for 10 days, 2 weeks, huh?
28 pallets.
Yeah, 28 pallets of cement and gunite like that out there for 10 days straight is what it took us to do it. Now, granted, you know, gunite sub probably could have done it in a quarter of the time, but it wasn't a one-day shoot by any means. Yeah. Next. That's the floor. Those are 18 by 36 sumps, I guess, Lawson sumps. Did on that.
Jason, you guys, and when you get those larger sumps, it's more of a commercial question, but do you guys have any problems with, as you let it sit and cure, cracking off of those things? You ever had any issues with that?
I haven't, not that I can tell.
I mean, we do generally go around the sumps faster.
You shoot it first?
Well, we're pouring them.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, we're pouring around and vibrating around them, so I mean, maybe that's some of it possibly. But I mean, we do like sumps. I know a lot of places they're doing poured sumps. I mean, I guess we like regular sumps also so we can go back and pressure test without having to use a blow-up plug. You know, now, I mean, you get to these big sumps, they're hard to test regardless, but, you know, want to be able to pressure test if we need to in the future, plug them, that kind of stuff. But we used some Lawson sumps and even started using, I'll show you another job where you used the Aqua stainless steel. They're new big ones that they came out with a couple years ago that Steve Barnes told me they were great, and it took me a while. All right, next. So that's the finished pool. You know, all tile pool, probably the first and I guess only, no, all tile 2x2 tile pool we did. I mean, that tile on those jobs, that was $200,000 just for the tile. Not glass tile. Glass tile would have been more expensive. Anybody besides Jeremy do an all glass tile pool? terrible, wasn't
Walls have to be square.
it? Super. I mean, that paper front glass tile stuff is murder. We did that one right there with all the third one. Austin did that. Had some consultant, landscape architect out of Florida that wanted all glass tile. Austin put it on there. Half of it came off. We're like, let's rip it all off. So if anybody wants some of that, the glass tile we had on that pool, you can have it. Take it back home. I'll send it home with you, Josh. That one had this one had like an island and a bench. They've got movie screens or TVs, so they made it where the kids could sit on the bench and watch TV. Basketball goals that aren't in on this picture, you see them in the floor. Then they had, it wasn't a lazy river, but it was like a current, resistance current. So it was like the half-ass lazy river, you know, had like, I mean, it had a 15 horsepower pump on it, but.
Hard concrete on the waterfall there, it was the first time we ever had an experience doing it. Had somebody come in and do that.
Yeah, we had a local guy do that, and that was weird. But anybody do much fake rock? We talked about shotcrete yesterday, but fake rock, you see that in Florida all the time, right? I mean, we went down and saw the guy in Charlotte. He had some Rico rock kind of stuff on some of those. But nobody's used the fake rock, carved rock.
Real hard to that.
I mean,
It still looks good today.
there was another water park that's built near us. The first time I'd actually saw it, I mean, they just, you know, rather shotcrete, low velocity shotcrete, put it up, and then, you know, dude with 2 trowels just starts shaping. I mean, it's pretty cool. Now it's all hollow, which it looks like shit now, you know, after 10 years. But at the time, it was pretty cool. So, right? You just been Homestead, haven't you?
Homestead? Oh, not that. That looks good.
Oh, this is fine. I'm talking about Homestead. I mean, that's when I actually saw it done. Yeah. All right, next. All right, so this is probably the most, so you heard us talk a little bit about the ACI 350, which is what a lot of engineers use, and I learned that from this job here. These are for West Virginia University in the basement of the football facility. These are like 7 foot by 35 foot long training pools for the football players, 4 feet deep, 4.5 feet deep. Players basically walk in one side and 55 degrees water, walk across and get out 165, and then they have a hot tub. So pretty simple structures in all reality. Well, the engineer made us we used number, is it 5s or 6s? 5s, 8-inch sun center, double mats for 12-inch wall for this 7 by 30 pool. It was down in the basement. The only way to get in was the door up on the top of those steps, or you had to go up and around and go through a set of double doors from the parking lot to bring all your stuff in. Several of my guys hated me for quite a while after we did this job. It's 5 hours away. It was murder. So since we're inside this building and it was for a state job, we thought, and it was 5 hours from us, we said, well, and everything's straight, just rectangle, simple stuff. We went in, we actually did a cast in place structures, which we don't do a whole lot of. We've done fountains, and we've at least done a ton of repairs and, you know, fixing the pools where we've done casts versus shotcrete. So, you know, basically poured the floor, water stop, and then basically did the walls, poured the walls. Then we did a third pour where we did all the steps, seats, all that kind of stuff after the fact. But tons of steel, just littered with steel, as you can see, that's there. Everything got backfilled. All right, this is another councilman job. This is the one that we used the stainless steel sumps from Aqua on, which good and bad. Next. The problem with those, I will say, is testing them. They didn't think about how the hell to test them. So they had to weld on bolts to the front of it that then make me custom test plugs in order to be able to test that line. Huh?
That's what we did with the paddock grates. It's the same
The
thing.
paddock's good. I mean, Don's
It's still hard. But
right.
It's better.
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, I probably should have got some from Don if I know what I know now. I was kind of throwing Aquastar and Steve a little bit of a bone because it was their new stuff and thought it would be, fun to do. But it was crazy to me how they didn't think about testing it and how important that is. That again, if you're stainless steel, you don't have threads, to be able to test to. Those are a picture of the sumps. So stainless steel bonded them. Those are 18 by 36s. Even for these little bitty pools, they want 18 by 36s. And they do that mainly to keep them flat, the grates flat, because they're walking on them. Well, they're unblockable, but they still want to. So again, Councilman Hunsaker, is very, very. They're good, but they make a pool and project very expensive. Next, so that's finished. Those are also all tiled. They had like a 8 by 12 tile on the inside of them, not quite conventional. The ADA rails, air intakes for the jets. Very neat, cool job, but it's not something I really want to do again. It was very stressful, and as all commercial jobs are, you get to the end, everybody's hammering, you've got 100 people working in one spot. Pretty tough. That back wall is a water wall that we did that I think is really stupid, but it was a lot of work for a stupid water wall. And the way they originally did it is they put on a whole nother system just for that wall. I'm like, why would? So what we ended up doing was we created. Luckily, Jenny's sister is the main person at WU. The only reason we got involved with this job in the athletic department. So why don't we just make basically an open trough between that catch basin for the waterfall and that other pool, and just let it run off of that. So you didn't have to have another pump, filter, chlorination system. I mean, just every time you have another body of water, it's a whole nother set of stuff. And we had a closet to put. I should have put all the filter system of this job. It was on 2 levels. Pumps were downstairs, and filters and heaters and chlorinators were upstairs. And there was no room for any of it. All right, next. Another commercial pool is an apartment complex. Big sun shelf space. It's up in Blacksburg. We put this one up here. Another topic I wanted to kind of just get thoughts on. I mean, I'm sure everybody in the room is doing tons of sun shelf areas, right? So when you're out of the ground, how are you doing how are you getting that sun shelf up to its level? What are you putting underneath it? You're using sandbags?
We use a conglomeration of like everything. Steel text, concrete bags, sand,
Okay.
plywood.
Have you used any of the foam yet? Well, I mean, well, that one there is not a good one. That one actually has plywood up on the front. When we're going to pour the floor, we're also pouring the floor and let it kind of roll down and be a turn down for that sun shelf. And then if we have to patch it back or build it out a little bit more when we gunite it, we will to finish it out. But at least we're making that as monolithic, relatively speaking, as we can. You'll see, did they false wall the other? What did they do on Marvin?
We haven't done the
Haven't done anything yet?
without the ground.
I mean, I have heard of what they call structural foam, which, I mean, and you see it a whole lot in high-rise stuff. Like, I mean, and granted, I haven't built a high-rise pool yet. I'd like to, but I don't want to. I want to say I did, but I don't really want to do it. But where a lot of these high-rise pools now, I mean, they might have sun shelf, beach entries. So instead, you can't get gravel up to them, or you don't want to get gravel to them. So they're using this foam that it really doesn't look a whole hell of a lot different than drive-it foam. I mean, it's just big blocks, but you get it like a 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot cube, and then you hot knife and cut it and shape it, and it's supposed to be able to do some cool stuff with it. But I'm a little intimidated by, can you really set the pool on it and it doesn't move? But it's supposed to be able to.
Used it for an elevated pool like 10 years ago. It was the only one we ever did. As far as I know, there's no issues, but I'd like to know what other people are doing for sun shelves, because
I mean, I think we're doing similar to your steel techs. I mean, we're actually using masonite. We're driving rods, pinning them back, attaching basically a masonite to them so they can be flexible and thin.
We're using like wire mesh lap.
Okay.
We're leaving it in there.
Right.
And we're driving pins back, tying it back with tie wire, and bringing it up with 2B crushed stone. We shoot it typically like a 10-inch thick floor, and I like to leave a space in between that portion where it cantilevers away from the pool. Just beef that up, so it doesn't snap.
Right.
But the wire mesh works well because you can shoot up against it and it holds the gunite, but you just leave it in. It's just metal. Shoot it in.
I mean, wire mesh. I mean, where you? I mean, you buying that in what? You buying that in a 4x8 sheet, I guess.
Yeah, it's just you got to use wire nips to cut it, and it'll slice.
Oh, you're using the. You're not. I was thinking more of expanded metal. You're using wire lath.
Yeah, so we'll put up like a steel framework similar to what you're putting in your floor. We'll put the mesh right on that steel. We'll stone up to that, and we'll shoot it.
Okay. No, like I say, that's one thing. I mean, all these sun shelves are cool, but at the same time, I mean, they're 9 inches of water. Well, what the hell do you do between the 9 inches of water and the 3 feet of water, 3.5 feet of water, that's there? Especially, I mean, even Lee's done a lot in the renovation side.
Yeah,
I mean, to where,
that's where I've seen that phone.
to where,
A lot of guys are trying to, if you got a rectangle, you take 5 feet of the shallow end and make it all a shelf.
Mhm.
It's a ton of weight. So there's-
Sure.
Guys have been using the structural and then just steeling around it.
Right.
Top 8 inches or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, you've done when you built these shelves in.
We use flowable fill, gravel, sand, most of the time. If it's not that deep, we'll just do all concrete.
Put a footer around the outside.
Now I gotta get materials there. I've never used that.
No, I mean, we haven't used that yet. I mean, another thing we do a lot, talking about renovation a little bit, anybody in here have like a lot of deep end pools? Like in our area in the 80s, every pool we built had an 8-foot deep end. Every one of them, which is flip flop. Meaning, granted, I know the Florida market, Texas market pools might be a little smaller because they're more of a commodity, type of thing, but all these pools are all deep. So I bet, probably over half of the pools you renovate?
It's not the cheapest thing to do, but a lot of folks had families and they had deep pools and they had diving boards and the kids move on. You got an older couple there that obviously don't want 8-foot deep pools, so yeah, we shot out a lot of depth often.
So we're extending main drains up, flowable fill up 6-8 inches below, and then pinning, doweling, and pouring another floor. Good. I mean, a lot of that kind of stuff.
First thing I do when I moved into my house, fix
All right, next. That's that finished pool. Big shelf runs almost all the way around it. Finished that last year. All right, next. What else we got? What is this, Austin? Oh, so this is basically what we've done to date with Sun Shelf, what we were just talking about. Spa, Sun Shelf, I mean, same thing. Floor, I'm just saying floor height differences and up in the air where you don't have dirt to support it, and you don't want to fill it all full of concrete. But like I said, we're pinning it. We basically make like hooks with the rebar both ends, and then pinning it in. And then we put the masonite on, and then wrap the masonite with another bar on the outside, and hope the hell that we can get it poured and shot before that masonite gets too wet. No?
That's crazy to me too.
Yeah, so it's gravel under pool. This is something else. I saw Dustin. I went out and saw Dustin Water stuff in Arizona, and I guess it blew my mind that there was no gravel under the pool. no water, but, and granted, like, I guess for us, we're using gravel for a couple different reasons. I mean, some of it's water. In our case, a lot of it's pipe, you know, where we need a place for that pipe to be, you know, leveling up, you know, where, I mean, unless you dig it perfect, you know, your gravel is what can change your grade. You might have 8 inches of gravel on one end and 6 inches on the other, but, you know, it's there. But that was one I'm like, now look at all these pictures online. I'm like, why the hell isn't there gravel under the pool? But everybody use gravel under the pool? Anybody not?
We do in Florida.
Okay, I'm just curious why you wouldn't, I guess. I mean,
Steel guys cry. There's no gravel in the pool. You know, they get muddy. It's easier to lay the steel down on top of the gravel and just take, you know.
anybody do more than 6 inches of gravel typically? Unless it's a weird circumstance? Okay, just curious. All right, next. It's another shelf built up and out. I mean, this one was like all rock, had a lot of rock in this, so it didn't dig very clean at all. I know I've seen some pictures and I've seen some stuff at Jeremy's where he's able to dig that old Arkansas dirt. You must be able to shape it and form it pretty good and keep benches and shelves and stuff intact. But usually we start digging, all that shit comes out and you almost starting to build it back up.
Bucked back like 4 feet.
Huh?
While you're bucked back so far back in case you lose the wall, right?
I got a good operator though. Good operator. You talking about my forms?
Yeah, the bucks and the back
Yeah.
holding forms are way back on the.
So like,
So if you lose that wall, you're holding the form.
yeah, I mean, definitely that. I mean, I definitely have. I've seen jobs that just have you know a piece of 4x6 with the one stake holding it up, and I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong with it, but that's the way we've always done forms, kickers. I mean, a lot of times we're driving. The ground was pretty hard, so we couldn't drive these stobs down. But in most cases, we drive the stobs all the way down to beam height. You know, shoot every stake in, and then just come back up and attach the boards to them, so that all those are level all the way around. A lot of work. Next, that's the same pool. So see that rock over there? That was all through the pool. So that one there hammered out a little bit of rock on that job, which is why that whole side is formed up. This end's formed up. That's there. Anything else on this one, Austin?
Well, it's just showing the sun shop how we do our false wall there with the masonite, 2 layers of masonite, one holding the gravel in, and then the 4 at the top of that shelf. Flush with the 2nd layer of masonite.
Yeah, so if you actually look real close, there's actually 2 layers of masonite.
Pour that in.
Yeah. So when we pour the floor, we'll let it roll down the front. Now, granted, the outside layer of masonite is against the steel, so we're still going to shoot 6 inches or 3 inches of gunite-ish on the front of it, but we're rolling that down. Again, with us shooting our stuff, the more we can pour, the less time it takes us to shoot it.
Plus Revolution's from out of town, if we're subbing it out, and they can only 30 yards max.
Right.
So we're trying to minimize the amount of
Yeah, our gunite sub brings all their own material, which is fine, but they don't really have a reload place in town. So they bring me 3 trucks, which is 30 yards. So anything more than 30 yards is hard to do when we do use sub. All right, next, that's the finished pool. Nice rock waterfall. I think waterfalls are super hard to do and make it look good. Natural. That one they did a pretty decent job, but it still looks like a big pile of rocks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what people like. I know. I'm not. I'm not a salesman. I'm not a designer.
How do you support that rock waterfall? I mean, because that whole side of the ground was out of, that was what, 4 feet out of the ground?
Yeah. What are we doing that one? We come back and poured.
huge gunite footer right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big wall.
Yeah, yeah, that wall went all the way down pretty thick, and we did a big footer behind it. And I mean, I guess one of the few things that I guess I've taken from Insane Pools is a little bit of how he's done his waterfall areas, as far as almost building a shelf with a curb wall, you know, to be able to, you know, which looks not like the waterfall necessarily, but it gives you a place for where does the water go when it doesn't go where you want it to go. You know, but, you know, of course that also becomes a nice big snake pit and, you know, cavity back in there for it. But, you know, like that big one there, we did a big, you know, basically it's got a big, almost a sun shelf, you know, a 7 by 20 foot sun shelf off the side of the pool. You don't see, but that's where all the rocks are sitting on top of that shelf. And then we thicken the wall like that one there with all those that rock. We did like an 18-inch thick wall, double mat steel for all the weight. Granted, I did that because I thought I should. If an engineer was involved, I don't know if I did what I should have done or more than I should have done. I don't know. It's there, but we're trying to support them, you know, make sure that doesn't have stress on them, but we don't do them all the time.
Does anyone use helicals underneath those? How? No?
It's probably not a bad idea. I mean, keep you probably a lot less concrete you have to use.
Probably less expensive, a lot faster.
Oh yeah, I
Or
mean,
you do that with a series of grade beams?
we did a renovation waterfall, and I ran 3 helical piles down like 30 feet each. And probably overdid it. I didn't get it engineered, but I also we were replacing an old worn out Rico rock that just deteriorated and looked like crap. And this guy wanted an extravagant waterfall. We were like 0 confidence on the pool. Like if the pool was built the same way the Rico was built, we didn't want anything attached. I mean, of course it's attached to the pool. We actually shot it, like you're talking about with that shelf. But we just had no confidence. You know, like we didn't want any of the ball weight or any of the rock weight to be sitting on that wall. So I was just curious if anyone else did it that way, or if we just overdid it.
We have never done any piles, had to do any piles, but I mean, I know it's a very accepted way, good way to do a lot of stuff. No.
It's an unending, unknowable deal if you have to put them in, because it's like you have to meet a certain parameter in kips. So like some of them will be 30 feet deep, and I've got some of them that have gone 110 feet deep.
Yeah.
And they charge per linear foot. They only give you like up to 30 feet, and then everything else after that. I mean, I'm like, this is like, I can't tell if this is real or just a racket. But the pools that we've done in Charleston with the soil conditions, I mean, you've seen that. I mean, just, you know, I'm toys.
Yeah. All right, next. More false wall stuff. Again, I thought that's something everybody has a little bit of a question about. What was this one, Austin?
That's Webster,
Oh, okay, yep.
masonite on the sun shelf and on the auto cover trough area, we actually use center block. Backfill it. Shot it, we get the
Yeah, so the right is the center block for the hot tub and the automatic cover trough. This one, they built basically a retaining wall, poured retaining wall all the way around it and created a box for us, which was good. Backfilled that, but then, you know, again, we had to build up for the shelf, we had to build up for the hot tub, you know, some of that kind of stuff.
Does that seem you on a footing? Of any kind?
Yeah.
You just pour a footing and put it on top of it?
Which, I mean, we did one with automatic cover trough. I just kind of stacked some CMU up just to hold enough till it was in, you kind of thing. Just say so that wall's not 24 inches thick. It's there. This one here, you know, it had an existing wall. So another thing I guess we've always done that I'm curious everybody else, but I guess we're always real particular about keeping the pool separate from other stuff. If it be decks, walls, that type of thing. So you see that the lows, that basically is fanfold. So a lot of times if we're going to shoot up against an existing, you know, retaining wall, we've shot up against the foundation of a house in some cases. You know, we basically put the fanfold up just as a bond breaker so that the pool and the wall are independent from one another. You know, like I say, expansion joints, you know, especially when it comes to decks, I would say, you know, we got expansion joints. You know, I always want to separate the deck and the pool wherever we can, just because the deck's going to always move, and that doesn't, or pool shouldn't. I'll put it that way. Next. That's that same pool, so that's the hot tub. That's where Austin poured the footer, and like I say, we kind of used it. We did block on that one just because they had block masons already there, and we just paid them to do some work for us while they were doing that. Made it a little easier. Next, that's pool that's there. One other thing I'll tell you too, we talked a little bit about drains yesterday. If I don't talk about it today, when VGB came out in 2009, I took the approach, and Lee and Austin don't necessarily agree, but I actually took main drains out of probably 90% of the pools we build today. You'll see a lot of my pools that as your pool people will look at them and say, well, that's a single main drain in the pool, which yes, there is a single sump in the pool, but only thing it has in it is a hydro. I didn't hook it up as a main drain. And the reason that I did that is because of the expiration dates on the drain covers. You know, you're not aware, but I mean, I teach CPO class and a lot of these commercial accounts. Well, every year we get hotel motels calling us saying, well, is my drain cover in compliance? You know, they want to certify that. But every drain cover, and most of these drain covers are 7 years, plus or minus. I'm not sure what some of them are. But in order to be VGB compliant, those covers will need to be replaced. And I said to myself, I'm like, well, I'm not going to send you a letter saying your drain cover is about to expire. We couldn't keep up in 2009. Lee did probably $250,000 worth of VGB work on these commercial pools. And we had one commercial pool for the city of Covington that was a 200,000 gallon pool. We built it about 4 years prior to that, I think in like 2005. So it was a relatively new pool. It had 12 by 12 main drains on it. At the time, your American Products 12 by 12 main drains could handle 600 gallons a minute with a American Products 12 by 12 lid. Well, if you look at, and if you're doing commercial stuff, a 12 by 12 lid now will do. But the first ones that came out were maybe 300 GPM. Well, we got a 515 horsepower pump. They did not make a main drain cover that would fit on a 12 by 12 that would accommodate 600 gallons per minute. Really still don't. So on that pool, the only way to make it compliant was we cut the main drain out in the pump room and capped it, and that pool ran like that for 5 years. Commercial pool, 200,000 gallon pool with a deep end, which everybody always says, well, don't you need a main drain and deep end? I'll tell you right now, no, you don't need it. But anyways, you know, well, need it or want it is, I think, a different thing. You don't need it to keep the pool clean.
We end up putting anchor scrapes on it, which is, you know, they're, you know, the 24 by 24, or 30 by 30, and that's your scrapes that we hold to the concrete. That's the only option for them right now.
But mainly, I guess I tell that just, I mean, I guess my thought was, the less main drains I have out in the field, the less I ever worry about suction entrapment, changing out covers, any of that kind of stuff. So a lot of the pools, even a lot of my smaller pools, actually have like 3 skimmers on them. You know, I took the main drain out and I popped in another skimmer. You know, and I'm vacuuming through skimmers. I also went away with vacuum ports. You know, I don't know if anybody in here still does dedicated vacuum ports. To me, they're the most damn dangerous thing in the whole pool. I mean, it's live suction right there. So I have 1 skimmer on every pool. Even commercial pools now, it's got 6 skimmers on it. I'll make 1 skimmer in the middle, and that'll have a dedicated line back to the pump. You know, the base, so we hook up a vacuum hose to the skimmer and vacuum that way. The VGB stuff, you know, we did a whole lot of stuff with VGB, and again, I'm not saying main drains are bad. I just think they're a big liability, and you got to be real careful with them. So, but the drain covers expiring is something that hopefully everybody's being real aware of now that we're 10, 11 years into VGB. Just because you made it right, just because you built it right in 2009 doesn't mean it's technically compliant now. You know, hot tubs are still use a lot of channel drains, a lot of unblockable drains. Most people unblockable drains and stuff.
On the renovation, we all doing with old pools, single sumps. Old pools with single sumps on the renovation, so we making dual sumps or unblockable drains or,
The Aqua, the super flow.
right?
Yeah, we're not replacing all of them. If they need, some of them will put a SVRS pump on. But
Every renovation I do is good enough for me. It's just,
We were always real nervous about the SVRSs when Vac Alert and Single came out. There was just too many false alarms, and I'm like, you know,
I use a fair amount of propeller drains on single sumps. The only thing about those that suck is they don't have a mud frame for them. They made the bolts right away with concrete, so you gotta plaster a little propeller the day before and have it plastered because you gotta drill directly into the plaster to anchor them.
Super flow's nice.
Huh?
Super flow's nice.
Right,
I mean, just the top,
that's it.
and it's the flow rate's unbelievable.
Good.
all right, next. So that's that finished pool. Automatic cover. Separate hot tub. This one here it was cool. We didn't really do it. I mean, anybody done these slot drains that are actually just slot? You know, the small slot, half-inch slot. I'm sure you spec'd out plenty of those. You know, hard to. Architects love them because they don't have to put them in, but they look great. I mean, or pay for them.
NDS makes it, it's not too horrible.
I'll just give you a hard time. All right, next. This one's showing raised walls. Now, this is another one of mine that I'm taking a little bit of a gamble on how to do it and some of that kind of stuff as far as thicknesses, steels. But this one's got about a 5-foot raised wall on the backside on the hill. You know, did that. You know, a lot of shooting on that job. This one here is sun shelf. We ran out of concrete, you know, but essentially we poured as much as we could, and then we'll shoot the rest of it in, you know, kind of thing. Next. So that's the finished pool of that. So everything from corner of pool to corner of pool is pool wall, you know, gunite shot pool wall, raised wall with just with the stone veneer on it. So they brought the wall over and, you know, butted it into ours, poured walls. But so it looks like one big wall, even though it's really 3 walls that are there for it. Next, I put these up here mainly, and you should see it today. Are they putting solid support on today? So one thing that I've talking to people across the country that we've done that I guess is a little different that, you know, I guess I'll tell you why we do it and tell you for what it's worth. But we do a ledge on the backside of the pool wall, we call a sidewalk support. So usually let's say that we've got 11-inch wall, pretty typical for 12-inch coping that most of us do. Well, basically we'll put our kickers in at 14. Well, that's if it's laying flat. You know, for that. Basically, we're doing like a double. If you were going to do a stone patio, we'd take 2 2x4s, put them vertically, to make a 3-inch by 3.5-inch block essentially around the edge, and that's what we you know, nailed to our band board that we have. So when we shoot it, we end up with this ledge on the backside of the pool wall to be able to support the deck. And I guess in our theory is always, well, if anything settles under the deck, which granted I'm not doing the decks, but if it does settle underneath the deck, it'll never get lower than the pool. So you don't get, you know, any settling doesn't become as much of an issue. Of course, we do a lot of expansion joints. Although, anybody found anything better than caulk to put in expansion joints?
I've used the black foam you can get from Lowe's, and just cut it short, and then pour your stove back up to it. Lay the stone over top, and then you see.
So what joint do you have between the stone and the coping? You grouting that? See, I guess I'm afraid to do that because our decks lift. I've seen a deck
The stone actually in ours, because we use all 8-inch walls, so it actually overlays
overlays the top of that.
like the top of sub deck.
Okay. So you're
Y'all, I know y'all can't, we can.
you're right. I mean, and I guess the freeze thaw is what changes, makes expansion joints, I think, necessary versus not. But I've seen a deck raise up as much as an inch above the coping during the dead of winter, and the next spring it's back down. No, I'm sure you've seen it, quite a bit. So, I mean, expansion joints, like I say, I think the biggest challenge is what do you do in that joint besides caulk? Austin's been trying, actually using like polymetric sand in it, so it looks more like, because a lot of these, you got a nice stone patio, well, you don't want to see a caulk band around it. It doesn't match. It looks like crap. But you need it structurally that's there. Yeah, Sika, MP2, huh? Yeah, polyurethane.
Filter sand, and when that caulk is wet, we'll usually sand the top of the caulk, and it makes it look like a pointed joint. If you sand it at the right time, it kind of sinks in, but not all the way into the top of the caulk. It takes the sheen off the caulk, and it looks like if you use a gray caulk, it looks a lot like gray pointing.
You don't have to worry about having a good caulk guy.
Yeah. We do a lot of caulking.
Caulking's terrible. You love caulking?
Just a lot of it.
All right. Next. All right, so this here, this is more similar to Josh's scenario, but essentially, and you'll see this detail when we go to my pool this afternoon. This is what traditionally we called cantilever stone decks. And what we've done on these is we're actually building really we're trying to make the top of the beam almost as skinny as possible, so like 6 inches. And then we're putting either a piece of tar paper or rubber or something else on top of the beam, and then letting the stone actually cantilever over the top of the pool. So your expansion joint is between the subdeck and the pool wall, and then your expansion joint becomes in between the tile and the grout is your continuation of the expansion joint. So if the deck wants to lift, it can, but the stone is part of the deck system, not technically the pool system. So it has room to move. Yes, you will probably get a little bit of a hairline crack between the tile and the grout, but I mean, it's got to move somewhere. If you don't do that in our area, you'll have a nice clean crack at the backside of the pool wall where the deck flexes and moves. But I mean, some like that one there where the stone, comes all the edge, it's done like that, to allow, still have an expansion joint, but you don't see the expansion joint on the deck.
We obviously don't deal with freeze thaw stuff, but in the winter when you guys are dealing with that 1-inch lift, does everything lift, like coping, all this?
The coping doesn't sit on top of the pool wall, but this scenario here, all that'll lift straight up. So
Yeah, but what about the stuff that's sitting over
on
the
the
top of the
renovation
beam?
end,
It could. I mean, like,
A lot of failures.
I'll tell you though, the ones we've seen lift up like that are not necessarily jobs that we did, and more than likely probably don't have much gravel under the deck that's there. I mean, I think it's more of it's an extreme case. I mean, of that kind of lift, but getting a 1/4 to 1/8 inch lift is not uncommon. Like I say, an inch is kind of extreme, but I would account most of the 1-inch ones just because they didn't have any gravel under the pool, so very little drainage and saturation and freezing with a lot of expansion.
well, on the renovation end, when you do that, instead of going back to grout, the color match caulk it instead of grout. It's just gonna put it back up.
You can't caulk it. So, I mean, that's what we did with my mother's pool. I mean, she's had her pool. We did that on it in 1985.
You either have to regrout or caulk it, at least when you caulk it, it lasts longer before it cracks again.
All right, I think that's all I got. And we can talk about it a little bit more, or we can take a break, get in the vans, and get out of here. All right, vans it is.
crazy